Hello, Sebastian. Welcome to the Builder's Mind podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's nice to have you here. While I was preparing for this podcast episode, of course, I was reading that you taught yourself how to code at age of 16, and then you started to have your first tech startup. So I'm just wondering what made you to come to this understanding that you need to learn coding in order to start a tech company, and what made you to do that?
Yeah, so I was always a builder growing up, and not necessarily in terms of code, but in terms of both physical and digital stuff, right? So I used to build my own board games, or I did 3D renderings in different game engines and stuff like that, just because it was fun. I was also a big video game fan, and I think that was one of the things that kind of brought me into the coding sphere, like the classic, hey, I want to build my own games, this curiosity of how is this built. So I started to kind of play around with, Scratch and that sort of software when I was even younger. But then when I came to high school, I had this goal for a while to learn to build real stuff, to be a real programmer. I ended up meeting a classmate who had the same kind of goal and vision, and was also a builder at heart. So we actually locked ourselves into a room for a week and said we're not coming out of here until we learned the basics of web development. So yeah, 5 days later we had our first working product, and that person ended up being Charles, who is now my co-founder at Strawberry as well.
That's awesome. There's so many others that they have this builder mindset and early on. But what was the moment for you that you thought that actually this building, this habit or fun can actually become a business? So this is a skill that you can take it from just having fun, but just to actually take it to the business part of it. What was that moment like for you?
Yeah, so in Sweden, there's this kind of program, there's this kind of structure for high schools where high school students can create companies that don't have to kind of comply to all the different regulations that a normal company has. So it's like a test run of a company, and you have it for 1 year and then you close it down. And so you just take that as an additional course. And I had a friend who had also learned programming separately, who took that course because he was interested in kind of the intersection between the commercial and the building, entrepreneurship, right? And he was looking for a co-founder because that was a requirement for the course. And yeah, I was not even doing that course, but he ended up kind of bringing me onto that thing because I was one of the only other people at our high school who knew how to code. And so we built our first product still in high school, and the building part, of course, was a lot of fun. It was my first kind of bigger project. But then we came to the step where we had to do something commercial with it too, right? We had to sell it. People had to use our product. And at that point, I didn't really think of it as something commercial in itself. I think I was just really excited to have people try the thing I built. It was really cool to just have people use it, and I could see the numbers, and people were willing to pay for it. That was an awesome thing. Someone wanted to pay for something that I built. So yeah, it became kind of this natural evolution of okay, we build something and then we sell it.
Nice. How the strawberry idea was born?
So Strawberry actually started out as a dev tool for agent builders. So Charles, he realized when GPT 3.5 came out that we are now at the point where agents are actually going to be possible. And so he started out kind of thinking about all the different problems to solve in that space, right? And he started building his own agent that was kind of a general purpose thing, just to kind of try to push its limits. And he realized that just the problem of having the agent interact with the web is a huge unsolved problem. And so he started building this dev tool to make it super easy for developers to have their agent click on buttons and fill input forms in headless browsers. So we did that for a while and realized over time that the technology was great, but the form factor was wrong. Because what would be even more amazing is if we brought these capabilities into the browser, where everyone uses a browser, right? So the tool that everyone uses on a daily basis, Like, what if we just bring this same technology to where you are rather than trying to do it the other way around? So that's how we kind of just felt that it made a lot of sense to build a browser instead.
Okay, so initially it was more of technology on the top of the agent, which was supervising or controlling that the agent is doing the work in a more efficient and kind of also the best way possible. Right.
Exactly. So it was like an abstraction layer on top of a headless browser.
If you see kind of it's more chat, all the AI agents are like either chat bots. Did you receive some feedback from customers that this could be like browser kind of feature? Or how did you all come out to this understanding that actually let's focus on the browsing part because everyone is there?
When we started kind of talking about what we were building to non-technical people, we quickly realized that they had no idea what we were talking about. Because like if you show a non-technical person 200 lines of code of like a script of what we built, like they're not going to get anything. So just as a way to showcase what we had built, we cooked up like a Chrome extension in, what was it, like 2 weeks, I think. That was essentially like you would record your screen and then it would turn that into a script using our SDK that we had built. And we just realized that people were super excited about the idea of like just recording your screen and then the agent does it. And to us, like the magic was in the code, right? But to a non-technical person, it's more about like, what can I do with this? And so that was like a really big clue to what was the right form factor.
Great. Before diving deeper to the Strawberry, I just have this question that how did you come up with the name Strawberry?
Yeah, names are hard. We played around with a few different ones. We ended up landing on Strawberry for two reasons. One is that it's very friendly, it's inviting, it's easy to remember, and we just liked it overall. It clicked pretty quickly. But the second one is also, it's like an inside joke for the agent community because there was this running joke with ChatGPT back in the day where like if you would ask it how many R's are in Strawberry, people would not be able, or as ChatGPT wouldn't be able to answer that correctly. And that was like a way for people to kind of claim that ChatGPT is not smart. And so, yeah, it's kind of a hint to that as well.
Nice. I think Sweden, like Swedish people, they have a kind of a taste in naming things. So like Lovable, Strawberry, and also Lee AI, like so many other kind of these cool and easy names that actually resonates with you. So yeah, you have to pick the Swedish mind here, just to name a cool startup. So maybe it will be amazing if you can shortly pitch Strawberry, like what it does now and what it is, and who are the main kind of users of Strawberry, and what are the value propositions that you're pushing forward.
Yeah. So essentially, Strawberry is a browser, like any other browser you have, but we built it to have AI native capabilities built in. So in the age of agents, we've asked ourselves, like, what would the browsing experience look like if you have a companion that goes with you wherever you go? So the capabilities that we built in now in the beginning is twofold. So one is kind of a read capability, and one is kind of the action capability. So the read capability is everything related to extracting data from a page in a structured format, right? Or doing research across pages where you would not normally do your research. So one great example is LinkedIn, right? Because that's something you would do in a browser that you're not going to be able to automate using any other service out there. Okay, so that's the read. And then the write access is kind of the frontier move, right? The capabilities where the agent has its own mouse and keyboard, and it interacts with the pages for you, and can even interact with the pages in the background and help you automate tasks that are repetitive.
Yeah, and so is it working in Safari, Chrome, in all the browsers that we have now?
So Strawberry is a standalone browser, so you download it and you will use it instead of Chrome.
Okay, but did you think of actually integrating it with the existing browsers because they already have the customers and the user base?
We discussed it.
Of course.
But at the end of the day, for a lot of reasons that I'd be happy to talk about, we decided that it was just much better to build a standalone browser.
Yeah. Of course, I think it has its own benefits because you can bring the customers to your own platform. your own technology. Because kind of you can have it in Chrome or other things, but then it will be just a feature type of thing, and maybe like there could be some limitations in the end if those big players will also actually rule something like.
Yeah, but it's hard, right? Because then you end up in the situation where it's like, okay, companies like Google or Microsoft have this huge distribution advantage, which they have used to their advantage in the browser space for the last 15 years, both with Chrome and Internet Explorer. So it's definitely a challenge, and it's not a challenge that we're dismissing. But we do believe that the space is so ripe for disruption, maybe more ripe than it's ever been. And we don't think that Chrome or Edge or any of these established players are going to be able to execute quickly enough in the space and well enough. And they're not going to be willing to take the risks that you might need to take in how you design your product to succeed here and be in the frontier.
Yeah, I think it has since it has been 3 or 4 years since the ChatGPT launch, and there was lots of saying that Google should just have a sidebar in its browser part, just like the AI chatbot. But I don't know why they still don't have it after years, but so many people talk about that, and so I'm sure like what you're saying is that they're a bit slow in execution, even with some simple things.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have billions of users, right? So if they change the color of a button, they're gonna get thousands, if not millions, of emails complaining about that. So it's hard. It's hard to kind of disrupt a space when you're the leader. It's a classic innovator's dilemma.
Yeah, true. So it will be amazing if we can do a kind of a demo of what a Strawberry can do.
Cool. I'll share my screen here.
Also, parallel question is that why did you guys did pre-beta launch, not beta launch? So you kind of went a bit backward with the launch.
Yeah. So a pre-beta, I would say it's essentially alpha.
Yeah.
The main reason is just that we don't feel like the product is not in a place yet to bring on this huge amount of users. We're still in a very early phase of iterating and making sure that we really address some key pain points of our users. So that means that there's a lot of benefit for us to working really closely with a smaller amount of users to later be able to provide a really good product for the masses later.
Okay.
So anyone who's ever been in a browser is gonna feel at home here, right? It's the classic layout. You have the tabs, you have the main window, and you have the address bar. The difference is that we have this little companion up here. And if you press the companion, it's going to open up and you have a sidebar. This sidebar and this companion it's going to be with you wherever you are on whatever page. And you're going to be able to give it context about one or several tabs. So one very simple example to illustrate this is kind of extracting information from a page, right? So let me just Google something real quick. Okay, let me just try and find a little bit of a better page here. Here we go. Yes. Okay, so here's a classic article, a list of companies, right?
Yep.
And so I can just ask Laura here, who's your default companion, to extract some key information in a structured way. So I can ask her, let's extract a table with name, visitors, and year founded. And so now she's going to read the page and create this table for us with that information.
Which is taken from this table that we have, from this report, which we are just founded.
Yes, exactly. So it's going to take it from the page. So there's a lot of tasks or job functions in general where you go to a page and you extract a bunch of information and add it to a sheet, for example. Mm-hmm. And so once this is done generating here, we're just going to be able to copy this. And I can even show you, if I create a new sheet, I'll just be able to paste that in and it's going to be the right format.
Okay, so one of the use cases is that you can actually extract any data that you want from any kind of page.
Exactly. And let's say I want to get some quick follow-up information, right? So I can ask it which are the top 10 in terms of web traffic.
So here, meanwhile, are you competing with AI scripting, startups or kind of other analytical startups that extract information, and then you can actually, do engaging chat and ask about the content, or you're competing with, browser agent, which allows you to actually control the browser.
Yeah, so the question you're kind of getting at there is kind of like this dynamic between like local in the browser. Do I want the agent to be where I work, or do I want it to be in its own container on some server somewhere? And I think there are a lot of situations where the kind of server approach is sufficient. I do, however, think that a lot of value comes from kind of me being in control and then just having these kind of bite-sized tasks, like micro tasks, that it's gonna help me complete quicker, like things that I would have done in my browser otherwise. And if you want to like outsource your entire workflow to something that's in the cloud, I think you should do that. I don't see a lot of evidence of people actually moving in that direction right now. And I think a lot of the time people just kind of wanna, how would I say this? Like people don't want to be replaced. They want an Iron Man suit.
Okay, so it's more of like that they're looking for an assistant, just like for helping them, not for actually like doing the everything for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so another thing you can do here, like you can have it do parallel web search tasks. So let's say I want to get, what information is not on this page? Amount of employees. So let's say I ask it, do web searches and find out how many employees each company has of these top 10.
And do you have limited number of beta, like pre-beta users that you're working with, or anyone can actually, request to get access to it and then they'll have it?
So currently we have a waitlist that you can sign up to, and we try to bring more people on as quickly as possible, but we try to do it in a way that makes sense, so to speak, so that we can actually accommodate those users. So here you can see that it's added another column here with all that parallel information, which if I would have done that manually, it would have taken quite some time.
Actually, kind of like one interesting like use case which I saw was that you were asking the Strawberry to control Lovable browser. And for me, that was interesting because, like Lovable is like meant to be simple to be used. And then like you still kind of, rely on the Strawberry, to help you out. Yeah, kind of, it's a bit of question that, is there something, should be much easier than Lovable?
Yeah. So that demo was kind of we did that to kind of highlight this idea of having different agents on the web communicating, right? Okay. So for example, there might be some information or some context that would help Lovable that Lovable doesn't have access to because it's in a different tab. So the demo was that we showed one tab where you had your email, and it would show an email from a customer saying that like, hey, you're missing some information on your website. And then we would have a separate tab with Lovable, and we would add both of those tabs into the context just by doing this like that. And then we would tell it to, hey, based on the request from my email, ask Lovable to do edits on my website.
Okay,
and then so it would create that prompt and input it for the user. And that might not be the quickest way to do it in practice right now, but it's more to kind of highlight this idea of like what could be.
Yeah, because for example, like me, like using Lovable, I also have the Figma tab open. So if, for example, I have like several other ones, ChatGPT, Cloud, like everything else, just because I take the prompt and use Figma and then like come into Lovable. But then, for example, if I would use Strawberry and then actually that it does kind of, I just type and then it knows where, like which tab to go and then kind of like come to the Lovable. That would be actually an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Perfect. So can we do like something more with this, or it's just like you just ask and then it brings the research and then fill in the information?
Yeah. So at the current stage, everything is kind of user prompted, right? So I'm doing something and I want to do it faster. Well, then I can open up this sidebar here at any time on any website, and I'll be able to get assistance from the assistant. So this was kind of the read feature. I would love to show you kind of the interaction feature, right? Laura, your companion, is actually interacting with the page for you. And so just to highlight this like super simply, I would just go to like google.com here and just have it press buttons, right? So I can create a new chat and I'll ask it to press the I'm feeling lucky button. Okay, so now she's noticing that, okay, I want her to interact with the page. And then she goes into this browsing mode where you see this little purple border. And did you see that? That's her little cursor. And now she's going to evaluate and say, okay, task completed successfully and done. And obviously this is a super simple example, but what this entails is that you can ask her to do a series of clicks that you would normally do manually. Let's say you have a task that you need to do like 4 or 5 times per week, and it's always the same, and you hate doing it, and it's super repetitive. You can just teach Laura or any other companion you have to do that. And so the way you do it is that you can actually press this drop down here and press Teach Companion. And so now you're going to be able to teach her a skill. So the way that works is that you say that, okay, when I ask you to get the monthly website report or analytics report, then I want you to do this. So let's say we call this like weekly user report. And then I can actually record my screen and say, hey, Laura, when I ask you to do the weekly user report, I want you to open a tab. I want you to go to Google Analytics. And then I want you to click on this, add this filter, and extract this data and get back to me in a table format, for example. And after I recorded my skill, she's going to think for a minute. And then she's going to learn how to do that based on like me showing her exactly where to click. And that way I've taught my browser to automate tasks that I don't want to do.
Okay. But then also it means that you need to have integration with so many other tools. For example, let's say that if I want my agent to do a report on how many calls or meetings I had from Calendly, so it will just go check the Calendly, check my calendar, and then kind of take it. So or like there's no integration needed. It's just a simple access that it can have.
Your companions can visit any website that you can visit. So it can open tabs autonomously and do it in the background for you, which means that if I ask my companion to go to my Calendly, give me a report, she's going to be able to like open up a new tab, write Calendly, and do that just as if I would do it in my local browser.
Okay.
And since I'm already signed into Calendly in my local browser, there's no like weird, like I don't have to give my passwords to some, some agent on a server somewhere. Everything is locally. All the cookies that keep me signed into a service are stored locally in the browser.
Yeah. So does it actually cost lots of energy consumption, or somehow you need to have compute power, or how is it possible just to do all these things locally in your computer?
So it's all locally in the computer, and it will take as much energy as if you were to open the tab and do it yourself. So really, there's no trade-off there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, man, for the demo.
One thing I would also mention is this kind of research capability that we have. So you asked me earlier, what are the most kind of common use cases and who are using it? The early users who are getting absolutely like the most value out of it, the people who are emailing me and saying like, this is saving me 10 hours per week, right? Those are often people who need to do a lot of research on a daily basis. So they need to go through like hundreds of tabs in a single workday and extract all that information and create a report for someone or whatever, or they add data into a CRM or stuff like that. So what you can do is that you can ask your companion, once again, like, do more research on the products of each of these companies. This is the old chat that we had before in the beginning of this demo. And so when I ask her to do this, she's going to be able to open up more tabs autonomously and search through the web for me. So I don't have to give her instructions like in the previous example, like go to this exact page. She's going to go out and try to figure that out on her own based on the instructions that I have. So you can see up here that we have this little button, AI tabs. And all of these are different tabs that she's opening to do research, to try and find the information that I'm looking for. And so just in minutes, your companion can go through like hundreds of tabs, which of course you would never be able to do manually in that time. And she can go through tabs or reach any website that you would be able to use. And that includes pages like LinkedIn, because you're already signed in there.
Okay. There are two outputs as I see now. So it's like you do research, it also reads the data, kind of extract the data. So it can actually give you a report, which you can use it, I assume, and then The second one is that you just train your little agents and then they do like your manual work. So it's just two kind of outputs in the end.
Exactly. So that's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning about the read functionality and the interaction capabilities.
Okay, this is amazing.
And really, like, your imagination is kind of the limit here in what you can do, because we give you the tools to say, hey, like, what happens if we essentially duplicate you? Like, what happens if we give you all these different agents in your browser? Like, you can teach it to do anything that you would normally do. Really, like, conceptually, that's limitless. You could become a X person or a 100X version of yourself.
And have you thought of the business model? For example, how would you charge? Because this like locally, like hosted, and then it's kind of like license based, or what's your thinking around that?
Yeah. So we always keep the basic browser functionality for free, right? So we're never gonna say like, hey, you can't open more tabs because you haven't paid. Then when it comes to the AI related features, we do offer free usage up to a certain amount, but as with any AI product, and it's going to cost us on the back end if you're going to use the AI capabilities, because we use the APIs of other providers. So we have a pricing plan that is still being determined exactly how that's going to look. But essentially, after a certain amount of free usage per month, you're going to pay to use it more. And of course, that's up to you. Like, if you feel like you're getting a lot of value and saving a lot of time with the browser, then feel free to use our paid plan. But if it's not that much and you don't really reach that limit, then it's not going to be a problem for you.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, because there's so many AI tools like coming up every week, and what I see is that like there's a pattern of vibe purchasing, that you just like vibe buying it because you saw something new and you're, wow, let me try it, and then like something next pops up. So just kind of a question is here that from your experience working with the startups, building your own ventures, and now Strawberry, who do you think that will win in this AI game? Because there are so many agents. I assume that there might be also browser type of agents that you're offering. So who in the end will win this game?
It's hard to say that there's going to be one winner. I think there's going to be a lot of specialized agents who have the specific tools that are needed to be good at a specific area. Right. So I think all of those companies who are able to create really helpful agents that are hyper specialized, I think, are going to be big winners in this. There's a lot of talk about, excuse me. There's a lot of talk about the base models being commoditized. It seems to be going in that direction, and there seems to be more and more indicators that the winners are going to be in the application layer. So I can tell you that much. But specific companies, hard to say.
Do you feel that at some point you guys will not, cover all the agents, but actually, focus on one or two agentic use case that the Strawberry could actually be excellent in that?
So what we think is that the future of the internet is going to look radically different than it's done for the last 20 years. So historically, what you've seen with web pages is that they're going to be they have been mostly static, right? You've had dynamic pages, but it's always been this kind of like, okay, it's this window and then there's text in it and you do something, you press some buttons or whatever. The future, we think, is going to be this like huge network of like millions or billions of agents that are hyper specialized who are like communicating with each other. And we think that the interpretation tool for that is very different than the interpretation tool for web pages. Mm-hmm. So the browser is an interpretation tool for web pages. But what happens when the web is agents, right? And we don't know what that's going to look like yet. But we think that the browser is a great starting point for kind of being your portal into this world of agents who can work for you.
Yeah. And also like that brings a question of that, how humans need to rethink and relearn how to interact with each other or how to use the internet in general. Like, do you need, to have like LinkedIn profile? Do you need to be like socially present if it's all agents interacting with each other? So I think, yeah, like it really questions everything, and then there should be new type of every social network or technology. Great. So we have the results now.
Exactly. So a few minutes went by and now it's done this kind of manual work, like by having read like hundreds of pages and trying to get information about the different products of all these different companies and giving me a report. And this was a very like simple, question, right? But it still kind of gave me stuff that I didn't even ask for that it thought would be relevant. So for example, pricing, like what different pricing plans do these different companies have? And also these different like key features, what's notable, stuff like that. But obviously you can also give it much more complex tasks. And one of those tasks could even be like, find me like 20 engineers within this very specific niche in this country. And then it's going to go out and do that using different social medias and pages and stuff.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Sebastian, for the demo.
Yeah, no worries.
So my next interesting part is about sales and marketing. First of all, let me ask about crazy product hunt launch. You got to top one of the product that day. So how did you approach the product hunt launch, and what made you guys just rank in the top? And how are you thinking after this about launching and then actually acquiring customers?
We're a very product-led company. So we focus very, very intensely, almost to a fault, on building the best possible product that we can build that actually provides real value in the real world. That actually, that's tangible, where people can say, I saved this many hours. That's really important to us. And I think that the product hunt launch was largely kind of an effect of that, right? So we had a product that people could use that was unique, that was like nothing else that they had ever seen out there. And so when we launched and we gave people access, they would try it out. We put a lot of focus into our onboarding, making sure that we show the value as soon as possible. And so very quickly, people would see the value, and they would even comment on the launch page and say, oh, hey, I tried it out. This was amazing. Or they would say like, hey, this sounds amazing. This promise that you're giving is really intriguing. It would actually solve a real pain point for me, and I want to try it out. So we got a lot of engagement just around the promise of the product and the fact that it's so unique.
And I assume that this is kind of a bit of consumer focus now, but do you see that there is an B2B angle to this, that you could actually kind of like have a more hard thinking B2B sales approach toward it?
I think we'll see where it ends up. I generally think that a user's willingness to pay for a product is a very good reflection of how valuable it is. So, and since we're focusing on kind of solving this like real world use cases and actually kind of getting these productivity gains, I think there's a lot of value for professionals, and there's a great prospect kind of for having this team plan structure. We'll see how that eventually plays out, but that's definitely something we focus a lot on kind of trying to get that right.
Perfect. And which one of the social platforms have been very big help for you guys in terms of finding the users?
I would say the three main are LinkedIn, X, and Product Hunt. Product Hunt was an amazing kind of discovery platform for our product. We were actually really happily surprised by how excited people were about what we were building at a scale that we had not really experienced before, because we had stayed under the radar for quite some time, actually. And we had been doing some demo videos on LinkedIn, on X, but we hadn't really made this kind of big effort in kind of showing this to the world, largely because we weren't really sure the product was ready for it. But then we came to a point where we felt like, okay, now we actually want to show people what we built here. So we launched on Product Hunt. That gave us a great boost on the other platforms as well. And I think we'll likely keep sticking to those three in the future.
Actually, I also found the Strawberry and You contact through the Product Hunt, which got me excited. And just like for the founders who are like listening to this episode, is that they have some to-dos and not to-dos for the Product Hunt launch that can make it a huge success.
There are some great guides out there on kind of the specific details of like your content and stuff like that, which we followed. And I would say that my kind of personal advice on this point is, again, like focusing on the product and really making sure you have a unique value proposition and knowing how to communicate that value as specifically and concretely as possible. So the time for people to kind of understand what they would get out of it is as fast as possible.
Okay, so you are building product-led growth. The customers, they love the product, but then how do you get in touch with these users which love your product and then they want to go out and spread the word? So they have a Slack group or like Discord group, or how do you keep this interaction with them?
We have a Discord channel where we have a lot of engagement, and we kind of keep this active communication with the most loyal kind of followers, the people who really believe in what we're doing and who have been with us for a long time at this point. Like, those people have just been absolutely amazing. A great shout out to them, because they have been able to give us a lot of great feedback and are like truly cheering us on. So that's a big one. We share feedbacks there as well about like product updates and try to kind of share tricks and tips on how to use it, different use cases. But then we also try to take as many actual calls with people as possible to kind of try to deep dive into their use cases, help them out, help them get the most possible value out of the product, and also understanding kind of the future direction of like what we need to do to get better.
There was a founder saying me that the best investors are your users, like the ones which are early on, like they give you shit, good,
Yeah.
bad, best feedback, and you kind of sometimes it's just so hard to take them, but actually, like if you start working on them, it really kind of makes the difference. And so you have to treat them as investors because they really invest and they bear shitty version, of technology.
Yeah.
They kind of wait and believe in it that, okay, this at some point will actually work better. So let's just keep it, for a bit.
Yeah. It's special. It's definitely like a specific type of like adventurer persona. Like it's kind of like, these adventurers, like when the people who sailed to America and discovered this new continent, like that type of mentality almost. These like early adventurers who are willing to take this huge risk for this like kind of huge reward in the end. The true believers, so to speak.
Yeah. And also kind of, especially for the ones, which they ask, them to pay as well, so it's like kind of double pressure because you're charging them and also you're kind of, but it's still, if you solve like main pain point, they are kind of, they're okay to wait for just like, like the product to get better. So at least like you're solving a portion of their a big problem. Yeah. So that's something, which helps a lot. Speaking of, teams and fundraising and investor, how big is the team and how are you guys financing the operation so far?
Yeah. I can't comment on the fundraising, but in terms of team size, we're 4. So it's 3 founders, 1 founding engineer. We're hiring, expanding the team, and mostly just to kind of try to accelerate how quickly we can build the product, right? Because we met this just like incredible demand, and now it's just up to us to kind of meet that demand and make sure to execute.
Yeah. And kind of, do you guys take advantage of vibe coding and then actually like let the AI like write some portion of the code and then you just do the rest?
We would definitely not be where we are without Cursor. So Cursor is just, it's an incredible tool. We're all, it's kind of mandated in the team that everyone needs to use it. And obviously, since we're in the agent space, we're kind of keeping a close eye on everything, and we believe that there's a lot of productivity to be gained there. And by the way, I would say that the fact that we have been so productive thanks to Cursor has been another like big motivator in why we're building this browser to begin with, because it was so clear to us that this super specific, super clear productivity gain that coders have gotten is non-existent in the world of non-tech. So like, okay, you have ChatGPT, you can create better or faster emails, not even better, like faster emails or write some content that's like half good. But like we didn't see like a real change in the way people work thanks to Gen AI. And we definitely saw that there was an opportunity to do that well.
Yeah, just like out of curiosity, as someone that who learned coding at the age of 16, do you see learning how to code is relevant now with all this Cursor, no code, and other just like, and also kind of like with the concept of vibe coding in general?
I think programming is kind of more of a like problem solving mentality, and it teaches you to break down problems. It teaches you to think, and I think those skills are invaluable and will like never go away. I personally try to optimize for learning as much as possible. Now, do you need to learn programming to build a product? No. I think it's definitive to say that you don't need to do that anymore, and it's going to be easier and easier in the future to build product as a non-technical person. Do I think there's a reason to learn programming anyway? Yes, I do. I think in the same way that there's value in learning to paint, right? Despite there being Photoshop. It might not be required, but I think it's an amazing like mental exercise. And if nothing else, it kind of teaches you to learn on your own, because no one can teach you how to code. You kind of have to do your own projects and kind of let your own passion guide you through it. And so for every reason that isn't kind of building products, I think it's still a good idea to learn programming.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'm pure business person, but I started kind of like learning some basic coding and stuff. And my first observation was that coding really teaches you the a logical thinking, a type of mindset. Because if you do something wrong, like just a comma, or like something very silly thing, and then the code doesn't work because of this small error. So like you really have to kind of like go line by line, but also you have to think about how do you see the flow of the code, what it should do first and second, and all these things. So I agree that it really helps with this thinking, but also like with problem solving type of mindset, that if you at least know. But of course, like you don't need to program, but it just kind of in general learning how to do that and having this skill is super helpful in everything.
Yeah, I mean, my experience is that technical people who have coding experience are it's generally pretty intuitive to them how to kind of guide an agent or ChatGPT through any task and break it down into logical steps that give a good result in the end. That doesn't mean that you can't learn prompting by just prompting. Of course you can, but I think that speaks to the fact that it's very helpful to still learn programming.
Exactly. So we kind of arrive in the end of the part, which I just asked random questions, and you just gave your thought. My first question is that over the years of building, what are or were some of the hardest learnings of building a tech company?
Sometimes people don't want what you're building, and you may like it or not, but you have to adapt.
And how to move forward from that stage, how to get the energy and actually, kind of go to the next idea and hope that that will work.
I think low ego is a huge component of that. Just leave that at the door. It has no place in building a startup. Okay, that might be a little hyperbole, but like the point still stands. So like you have to be able to kind of look at the facts and reevaluate. And I saw this. I don't remember who said it, but I heard this great note by someone recently that to be a good founder kind of means like both to have like a super strong vision and like stay on course, and have high conviction, but also having kind of the humility to recognize when factors change and you need to change your mind. And those two are in like constant friction. Those two, like in a way, they're like completely opposites, but in a weird way, like that's what makes a good founder.
Yeah. Like last week, we were chatting with Will from Tano, like the last episode. And actually, what I was saying is that, like founders or entrepreneurs, what I learned is that they have to learn rethinking ability, because sometimes, you just need to rethink about the fundamental things that you believe them that they hold true. But now, for some reason, it doesn't, hold true anymore. So you just kind of need to give yourself this rethinking chance that, okay, you just need to rethink everything and then kind of move forward with the new things in your hand.
Yeah.
My next question is that what is one thing which Strawberry has taught you about humans? Because now, you try to build agents, you try to build, this agentic things. I asked this from Well also in like previous times, so I would like to have your thinking of what I taught you about humans actually.
Yeah, I love that question. It's still early in our journey, but I'm getting the strong hints that people are very good at adapting to changing circumstances at a macro level.
Yeah. That's something, yeah. That's true actually. Because we are, always scared that something will just come and, like the world will be end. But then actually, in some days or weeks, those new things become so normal and our expectations go so high, and you're still shocked that, okay, this was, the one meant to disrupt everything. But it's still, so it's, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because we tend to, as humans, we tend to kind of have this like aversion to change. So anytime there's any kind of like external threat, like something that might feel existential in the moment, we tend to have this like huge reaction. But very quickly, it just becomes the new normal.
And one more last question is that, what do you do on the weekends?
I work, man. gotta keep building. When in my free time, I like to when it's not in the middle of the winter in Sweden, I like to spend time outdoors, and I like to go on adventures, and I like to learn new things.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sebastian, for doing this. It was super fun, and I hope to see you soon in person as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's
Thank you,
fun.
man. Bye-bye.